Okie dokie. Well, welcome to part 2 of this video where we are going to explore the ethical side of veganism and just dieting in general. And we're going to use Fresco's video on veganism as sort of a guideline or base for our arguments here. Now, I believe the title of that video actually after is Veganism, and with like an exclamation point. In parentheses, something about saving the world. I think that's very far-fetched. It's true that environmentally speaking, we are not in by any means an optimal position today, or even one in which it's easy to be optimistic. We definitely have a long way to go in terms of moving towards where we would prefer to be, but I have to ask the question, how is veganism getting us there? Or is it at all? Well, let me get into this by quoting or paraphrasing something Coy says. He says, though at one point it was necessary for like cavemen to wear raw hides and eat meat, it is no longer necessary because we have reached a level technologically where we don't have to eat meat. And that is just a strange idea that is rather fallible. I don't see what the technological revolution has to do with nutrition at all. It's like just because there's a thing called science in our modern day, we think that because someone publishes a study that uses fancy vernacular that supports the idea or suggests that veganism may be a healthy thing, that therefore that denies our whole primal set of necessities, which I talked about in the last video. It goes so much deeper when it comes to talking about what we should be eating. As I see it, technological advancements are working so much more towards the problem here, and Coy actually agrees with me, because the agricultural system is something he critiques or criticizes, and it is true. Animal agriculture today is fucked. It is not okay to be treating the animals the way that they often get treated. It's very cruel. It's horrifically cruel, oftentimes. And if you are a vegan, I want to take a second to say I applaud you for altering your lifestyle to stop this, with the hope that you will benefit or better the world. But I do have to ask the question, are you really? While you are, I trust that you are sincere in your efforts, how is veganism actually stopping these atrocities? And I'm going to explore that by using this quote by a guy named Howard Zinn, who was a rather famous historian. You can't stand still on a moving train. Now, if you think of basically the industrial food production that we have today as this train with massive inertia, speeding on down a track. The theory is that vegans are going to save the world or stop the train by stepping off. But when we get realistic about this, more people are being born onto the train every day than there will ever be people stepping off. The net result or growth of the size of the train or the population of the train is overwhelming to the point that that train is gone. So we really just have to ask, how can we be more realistic? Because vegans, in order for their plan to work, literally everyone, or most everyone, almost everyone, has to adopt these, which is a reason why I think Koi is so obstinate, and I think on this particular video is a little out of character in being myopic and closed-minded. Who is actually doing better? The vegan who witnesses these atrocities and therefore pushes it out of his life, cuts himself off from it, so as to not support the institution. Which I'm not saying that doesn't help, but what about the person who recognizes meat as a potentially viable food source under certain circumstances and therefore seeks out where animals are being treated with love and also fed the right foods so that the symbiotic relationship can be fulfilled to the utmost? It seems obvious to me that the latter is doing more. And that's really what it is a symbiotic relationship. It's kind of funny because Koi says that animals should not be viewed as food, that they should not be objectified, and that we have to get in touch with what they really are and move past that tendency. But when you ask the question and explore it to its end of what these animals really are, you find that they are food. The reason the animal that we know as a cow exists today is because we had a utilitarian purpose in domesticating them. I believe the wild animal that we domesticated them from is something called an aurochs, which is actually extinct. So while vegans on a superficial level claim to be supporting life, what they would prefer, it seems, is almost as if we never even came into contact with a cow, which is something that only existed after we created it, which would then imply that they would be extinct because the actual natural relative of the cow is extinct, but also that they want all the cows today to basically be gone. No vegan really thinks about that, but the reason that cows exist is because we have demand for them. Now that does not give us the right to treat them cruel at all. They should be treated with love and respect. And another ethical point is that Koi says that vegans share an unconditional love for all species. And while I trust that this is sincere within Koi's perspective, I think that there is, unfortunately, a much more prominent disgust with human behavior amongst the general vegan population. And while that may be understandable, it is fundamentally a part of the problem. When we are disgusted with ourselves and bury and hold that negative emotion within us, and for our brothers and sisters within the human race, then that gets projected out. And I don't want to get into psychology, but we cannot act effectively in the world until the position from which we are acting is stable and well balanced and maintained. I think by exploring the question, what is best for me, and then honestly pursuing it, not to advocate for any opinion or prove any bias, but to actually find what is best, then ultimately these things we're trying to achieve, like improving the lives and stopping the torturing of animals, and furthermore saving the planet, may be actually more possible. Now, I want to end by saying that I care about my food. I care about animals. And also, I want to say that the love for an animal doesn't contradict the consumption of it. Let me leave you with this idea. Primal societies from pretty much time immemorial have consumed animals as a part of their diet. And while vegans claim to be acting from a place of love that is absent in their fellow meat eaters, a great deal of meat eaters from the past viewed the sources and the animals from which they got their meat as sacred. The natives of the plains of America had rights around the buffalo, and they literally viewed it as a god. What vegan has a love for an animal that even comes close to that utmost reverence that was held in the hearts of those more primitive people who consume their meats? I think what we don't really think about often is that by becoming vegan, we therefore sever our inherent tie to this form of life. And therefore, although it seems rather ironic, don't care as much as someone who actively participates in the life of something. It seems quite obvious. You hear about someone else's dog dying. Okay, yeah, that's sad. That's sad, you know? I know it. But if your dog dies, you fucking feel it with every cell in your body. Your life changes. And so by participating in a relationship, that's how love is fostered, not by severing it. And so with that point, I would like to conclude the video. This is such a deep topic. I've already cut out a lot from what I've talked about, and I still fucking couldn't manage to cut it down below like 20 minutes. So I hope if you listened this far that you got something from this, and if you did, I encourage you to let me know how your opinions might differ and how we might go about finding a better way to live, really. So